You step outside on a cold, bright morning, the sun catches your face, and something inside you loosens before you can explain why. Your shoulders drop, your breathing slows. You feel better, and you have no idea what just happened to your body. Here is what I found, and it stopped me cold. The sunlight hitting your skin does something no pill in your cabinet can copy. It changes your blood, lowers your pressure, and steadies your whole body in a way vitamin D capsules were never able to match. But the how was buried far deeper than the what. Someone found it far more profitable for you to swallow a pill than to walk outside. The trail I followed ends in a Swiss mountain clinic, in a record from 1903, in the work of a doctor whose cure was so simple that the modern world quietly filed it away. You do not need special tools. You do not need money. You only need what is already falling on your porch for free. It started for me with a plastic bottle on my kitchen counter. My doctor had told me to take vitamin D, 2,000 units a day. I had been swallowing those little gold pills for 3 winters, and my numbers barely moved, and I felt exactly the same. One morning I stood there holding that bottle and I thought, if this is the sunshine vitamin, why does bottled sunshine do nothing for me? Ugh. That one question cost me 4 months of digging, and what I found underneath it made me angry I had ever trusted the bottle. Let me show you what I mean. The first thing that stopped me was a simple fact that did not add up. For years I had been told the whole point of the sun was vitamin D. That was the story. Sun makes vitamin D keeps you healthy, so if you cannot get sun, you buy the vitamin in a jar and you are covered. Clean story, easy to sell. And, as it turns out, mostly wrong. Because when researchers actually gave people vitamin D pills and tracked what happened to their hearts, their blood pressure, and how long they lived, the results kept coming back flat. Big trials. Tens of thousands of people. One of the largest ran for more than 5 years and followed almost 26,000 adults. And the pills did not lower heart disease. They did not stop strokes. They did not do the things sunlight was supposed to do. I read that and I sat back in my chair. If the vitamin is the reason sunlight works, then swallowing the vitamin should work just as well. But it did not, which meant one of 2 things. Either sunlight did nothing after all, or sunlight was doing something the pill could not. And I already knew from my own body which one felt true. I have never once felt a pill change my mood. But step me out into a bright morning after a week of gray skies, and I am a different man by lunch. My wife noticed it before I did. She used to say the sun put me back together. So the question was no longer whether the sun mattered. The question was what the sun was doing that we had stopped measuring. What was in that beam of light that never made it into the capsule? That is when the trail stopped being about vitamins at all. And it led me somewhere I did not expect. It led me to blood. Here is the clue that cracked it open for me. I found a study out of the University of Edinburgh, in Scotland, led by a skin doctor named Richard Weller, and what this man discovered goes against almost everything the pill bottle taught us. He took ordinary people, and he shined ultraviolet light on their skin. Not on their eyes, not in a pill, just light, on bare skin, the way the sun touches you when you sit on a porch. And within minutes, their blood pressure dropped. Their blood vessels opened up. Their hearts had an easier time. Now here is the part that made me put my coffee down. This happened without any change in vitamin D. Their vitamin D levels had not moved at all in those few minutes. So whatever was helping them, it was not the sunshine vitamin. It was something else entirely. Something we had completely forgotten was even there. What Weller found was this. Your skin holds a large store of a compound tied to nitric oxide. When sunlight, the ultraviolet part, touches your skin, it releases that store into your bloodstream. And nitric oxide is the thing that tells your blood vessels to relax and widen. Wider vessels, lower pressure, less strain on the heart. Think about what that means. Your skin is not just a wrapper. It is the largest organ you have, and it has been sitting there this whole time acting like a solar panel for your circulation. And nobody told you. They told you about the vitamin. They sold you the vitamin. They never mentioned that the sun was quietly doing a second job, a bigger job that no capsule on Earth can perform. Weller put it bluntly. He said we may have spent decades so focused on skin cancer and on vitamin D that we completely missed a benefit of sunlight that could matter more for how long people live. High blood pressure kills far more people every year than skin cancer ever will. Far more. And here was a free, natural way to nudge it down, hiding in plain sight. I remember reading his words twice to make sure I understood them, because if this was true, then the advice I had been given my whole adult life was not just incomplete. It was pointed in the wrong direction. Hide from the sun, they said. Take the pill instead. And all the while the real medicine was the thing I was being told to avoid. But that raised a harder question. If a Scottish doctor only proved this in the last decade or so, how could I say people used to know it? How could this be forgotten wisdom if it was brand new science? That is exactly what I asked myself. And the answer sent me back more than 100 years, to a mountain, and to a man who was curing people with sunlight long before anyone could explain why it worked. His name was Auguste Rollier. And in 1903, high in the Swiss Alps, in a village called Leysen, he opened a clinic built on nothing but sunlight and fresh air. Let me set the scene, because this is where the trail got real for me. Back then, tuberculosis was one of the great killers. It ate through the lungs, but it also attacked bones and joints, especially in children. There were no antibiotics. A diagnosis was often a slow death sentence. Doctors could offer very little. Rollier had a different idea. He believed that graded, careful exposure to mountain sunlight could heal the body, not a quick roast in the midday heat, a slow, patient method. He would start a patient with just their feet in the morning sun, for a few minutes, in the cool early light, then a little more skin the next day, then a little more. He built the body's tolerance up like you would train a muscle. And it worked. Photographs survive from his clinics. Children who arrived on stretchers, wrapped in bandages, with tuberculosis eating their spines, walking out months later. At his peak, Rollier ran a whole network of clinics in Leysen with over 1,000 beds. Doctors traveled from across the world to see it. This was not a fringe operation. This was celebrated, frontline medicine. And he was not alone. A few years earlier, in 1903, a Danish physician named Niels Finsen had won the Nobel Prize in medicine. For what? For using concentrated light to treat disease. The Nobel Prize. For light therapy. That is how mainstream, how respected, how proven this idea was at the turn of the last century. I sat with that for a long while. There was a time when the most advanced medicine we had, honored with the highest prize in science, was built around putting sunlight on human skin. And now we are told to slather up, cover up, and stay in. Now the sun is treated almost entirely as a threat. So what happened? How does a Nobel Prize-winning treatment, a clinic with 1,000 beds, a method that walked crippled children out on their own feet, just vanish from the conversation? How did we go from worshipping the sun as medicine to fearing it completely? That question is where the trail turned dark. Because things this useful do not disappear by accident. Somebody has to benefit from the forgetting. Here is what pushed the sun out of the doctor's bag. And I want to be careful, because it is not one single villain in a black hat. It is quieter than that. It is the slow, steady way that something free gets replaced by something you can sell. When antibiotics arrived in the 1940s, they were a genuine miracle. A pill could kill the tuberculosis bacteria directly, fast, repeatable, easy to package. And rightly, medicine rushed toward it. But something got lost in that rush. The sunlight clinics closed. The slow, patient method of heliotherapy, as it was called, was set aside. Why sit a patient in the sun for months when a pill could work in weeks? I understand that trade. I do. But watch what happened next, because this is the part that costs you money to this very day. Once the habit of using sunlight as medicine was broken, it never came back. And into that empty space stepped two very profitable ideas. First, that the sun was mainly dangerous, something to be blocked. Second, that whatever good the sun did, you could buy in a bottle instead. Think about who wins with that arrangement. You cannot patent a sunbeam. You cannot meter it. You cannot bill a patient monthly for stepping onto their own porch. There is no profit in telling a man his best medicine is free and falling on his lawn every clear morning. But a vitamin D capsule? That you can bottle. That you can brand. That you can sell to the same person month after month, year after year for the rest of his life. And that is exactly what happened. If you want to go deeper on everything I just walked you through, the nitric oxide research, the forgotten clinic records, and how to build a practical daily method around all of it, I put it together in a book called Reset, available through the link in the description. It covers this ground in full, with the sources laid out so you can check every claim yourself. If any part of this trail has felt familiar, a bottle that never quite worked, a morning outside that changed your mood in ways you could not explain, Reset is where I took all of that and built it into something you can actually use starting tomorrow. The vitamin D supplement business grew into a giant. Americans now spend hundreds of millions of dollars a year on vitamin D pills alone. Hundreds of millions. For a substance your own skin will make for free, given 10 or 15 minutes of sunshine. I am not telling you vitamin D is worthless. If you are truly deficient, it has its place. What I am telling you is that we took one narrow slice of what sunlight does, the vitamin, put it in a jar, sold it hard, and let everyone believe the jar was the whole story. Meanwhile, the bigger gifts of sunlight, the nitric oxide that relaxes your arteries, the effect on your mood, the setting of your inner clock, none of that fits in a capsule. So none of that got sold. And what does not get sold, in our world, slowly gets forgotten. That is the quiet theft. Not a dramatic ban, just a steady nudge, over decades, away from the free thing that works and toward the paid thing that works less well. And it happens so gradually that most people my age never noticed the switch. But once I saw it, I could not unsee it. And it made me want to know everything the sun was actually doing, all the jobs we stopped paying attention to. Because the blood pressure discovery was only the beginning. There was another effect, one tied not to your skin but to your eyes and your brain, and honestly, it might be the most important of them all. Let me tell you about your inner clock, because this is the piece that changed how I run my whole day. Deep in your brain sits a tiny cluster of cells that acts like a master clock for your entire body. It controls when you feel sleepy, when you feel alert, when your body releases certain hormones, even when your digestion fires up. And that clock does not run on its own. It has to be set. Every single day, like an old wind-up watch. What sets it? Light. Specifically, bright morning light hitting your eyes within an hour or so of waking. When that light comes in, it sends a signal straight to that master clock and says, "The day has begun. Start the timer." That signal triggers a healthy morning rise in cortisol to wake you up, and it starts a 14 to 16-hour countdown to when your body will release melatonin at night to help you sleep. Here is why this matters for someone my age, and maybe yours. So many of us lie awake at night. We toss. We stare at the ceiling. We blame our age, our worries, our coffee. But a huge part of the problem is that we no longer get strong morning light. We wake up, we stay indoors, we sit under weak electric bulbs that are a tiny fraction as bright as the sky, and our inner clock never gets a clear signal that the day has started. So it never gives a clear signal that the day is ending either. The numbers here are staggering, and this is where I want you to really listen. Indoor lighting in a typical home is maybe 100 to 300 units of brightness, what scientists call lux. A bright, overcast day outside, even with no direct sun, is around 10,000. A clear, sunny morning can be 50,000 to 100,000. Your eyes cannot always feel that difference, because they adjust. But your inner clock feels it enormously. Sitting by a sunny window is not the same, because ordinary glass in the walls cut most of it away. So when I read this, I ran a test on myself. For 3 weeks, I went outside every morning within 30 minutes of waking, no sunglasses. Just stood on my back step, or walked to the end of the road and back, for about 10 to 15 minutes, rain or shine. And I did not tell my wife, because I wanted to see if she noticed anything before I said a word. On the 9th day, she asked me what I had changed, because I had stopped getting up at 3 in the morning. I had been doing that for years. Up at 3, wide awake, angry at the ceiling. And it had just quietly stopped. That was the morning light resetting a clock that had been running wrong for a decade. Now, that was the moment I realized something important. This was not one trick. Sunlight was doing at least 3 separate jobs, making vitamin D, releasing nitric oxide to help my heart, and setting the master clock that runs my sleep and my mood. 3 different gifts from one free source, and we had been sold a pill that only pretends to cover the first one. But maybe you are sitting there thinking this all sounds fine for a retired fellow with time to stroll around his yard. Maybe you are thinking your life does not work that way. And I hear you. So let me talk to you directly, because the next part is built for exactly your situation. I know some of you are watching this on a television in an apartment where the sun barely reaches the window. Some of you live where winter is gray for months. Some of you have trouble getting around, and the idea of a morning walk sounds like a luxury you do not have. I thought about you the whole time I was digging, because forgotten methods are only worth anything if a real person, in a real ordinary home, can actually use them. So here is how you use this, starting tomorrow, with nothing you do not already own. First, the morning light. You do not need a walk. You do not need to go far. You only need to get your eyes, and, if you can, a little skin, under the open sky. Open your back door and stand in the doorway with your coffee. Step onto your balcony. Sit on your porch step. The key is open sky above you, not glass in front of you. Even 5 to 10 minutes on a gray morning gives your clock a signal that is dozens of times stronger than your indoor lights. Do it while the coffee brews. It costs you nothing, and it changes your whole night. Second, if you truly cannot get outside, get as close to a window as you can, and open it if the weather lets you. An open window with sky in view is far better than a closed one, because clean air aside, the glass itself blocks much of the ultraviolet light that your skin uses. This is a small thing that Rollier understood 100 years ago. He built his clinics with open balconies for exactly this reason. He knew that sunlight through a closed window was a weaker medicine. Third, timing beats intensity. You do not need the harsh noon sun, and for older skin you should not chase it. The gentle light of morning and late afternoon does much of this work, and it is far kinder to your skin. Rollier never roasted his patients. He started them slow, in the cool hours, a few minutes at a time, and built up. That is your model. A little, often, early. Not a lot, rarely at noon. Fourth, bare skin matters more than you think. Nitric oxide comes out of skin the light can actually touch. So, on a mild morning, roll up your sleeves. Let your forearms and your face take the light for 10 or 15 minutes. You do not need to strip down or burn. You just need honest skin meeting honest light, the way your grandparents did every day of their working lives without ever thinking about it. And here is the reassuring part. None of this requires you to give up your pills against your doctor's word, or to do anything drastic, or to spend a single dollar. You are not buying a lamp. You are not buying a supplement. You are simply taking back a habit that every human being had for 100,000 years, right up until we boxed ourselves indoors and forgot what our own skin was for. I tested every one of these myself before I would say them to you. The doorway coffee, the open window on bad days, the rolled sleeves in the morning, and the change in how I slept and how I felt was not subtle. It was the kind of difference that makes you wonder how much of what we call aging is really just a body starved of the light it was built to run on. But I promised you the trail ended somewhere specific, and it did. Because there was one last piece. The piece that ties Rollier's mountain clinic to that Scottish blood pressure lab, and it is the simplest and most powerful thing I found. It is the part I want you to carry out of here and use this weekend. So let me take you back to Layson one more time, to the actual method in Rollier's own records, because this is the treasure at the end of the dig. When I finally found detailed accounts of how Rollier actually treated his patients, written up and preserved in the medical literature of his day, I expected something complicated, some secret sequence, some technique only a trained physician could manage. That is what 100 years of being sold complicated things had trained me to expect. What I found instead was almost embarrassingly simple. And that simplicity is exactly why it got buried, because you cannot sell simple. Rollier's core method was this. Begin in the cool morning air, not the heat. Expose only a small part of the body first, the feet, for just a few minutes. Each day, uncover a little more of the body and add a little more time, always in the gentler hours, never letting the skin burn. He treated the sunbath as a careful dose, exactly like a medicine, with the amount raised slowly as the body grew stronger, and he combined it with fresh, open air, never through glass, always under the true sky. That is it. That is the Nobel-era medicine that walked children off their stretchers. Cool morning light. A small dose to start. A little more each day. Bare skin, open air, and patience. No equipment, no prescription, no cost. A method so plain that a farmer in 1800 would have recognized it, and so quietly powerful that a modern laboratory, more than 100 years later, finally proved why it works, right down to the nitric oxide flowing out of the skin and into the blood. Here is how you do your own version of it this weekend, and I want you to hear how gentle it is. On the first morning, go out into the early light, before the sun is high, and let your face and your forearms have it for about 5 minutes. That is all. The next morning, make it a little longer, 7 or 8 minutes, and if it is mild, let a little more skin see the light. Build it up across the week the way Rollier built it up across weeks, always in the kind morning hours, always stopping well before any pink touches your skin, always under open sky, and never behind glass. You are not sunbathing, you are dosing. You are doing exactly what a Swiss doctor did in 1903 to heal the incurable, exactly what an Edinburgh scientist measured in our own time and watched lower blood pressure in minutes. The mountain clinic and the modern lab are describing the same medicine. One just had the instruments to explain it. Both point to the same free thing falling on your doorstep right now. That is the end of the trail. A treatment we honored with a Nobel Prize, ran in clinics with 1,000 beds, and then set down and forgot the moment something patentable came along, preserved in old medical records, gathering dust, until a stubborn question about a bottle of pills led one ordinary man to go dig it back up. And now it is in your hands, the same as it was in Rollier's, costing exactly what it cost the first human who ever turned their face to the morning. Nothing. So here is what I want you to sit with tonight. You were handed a bottle and told that was the sun in a jar. But the real sun was never in the jar. It was outside the whole time, doing 3 jobs no capsule can do, waiting on the other side of a door you were quietly taught to keep closed. You are the kind of person who does not just swallow the easy story. You pulled this thread all the way to the end with me, past the marketing, past the fear, back to what actually works. That is rare. Most people will keep buying the bottle and wondering why they feel the same. You are not going to be one of them anymore. Now I need to hear from you. Somewhere in this you had a moment where a piece clicked, where you thought about your own mornings, your own sleep, your own bottle on the counter. Tell me this. Have you ever noticed the sun change how you feel, the way my wife noticed it change me, and just never had the words for why? Or were you, like me, told for years to hide from the very thing your body was starving for? Write it down in the comments. I read them, and I answer. And the stories people are sharing are becoming their own kind of record. If part of you feels a little robbed right now, good. Hold on to that. Because there is a whole world of these buried methods, things our grandparents did for free that we were slowly taught to pay for, and I am going to keep digging them up one at a time. Subscribe and stand with the people who are recovering this knowledge before it disappears for good. Next time, I am following a different trail, one that starts with a strange line in a 1920s farmhouse cookbook about a way to keep food fresh for weeks, with no ice and no electricity, and the reason it works is not what anyone expects. That thread is already pulling. I will see you when I have followed it all the way down. This video gave you the story. But inside my membership, the Old Ways Society, I walk you through the full sunlight protocol, morning by morning. And if you have a question about your own body, ask me directly. A real person answers you, not a machine. You'd be joining folks like you, all in this together. Just point your phone's camera at the code on the screen, and you can cancel anytime, one click. No risk.